if you want to lose 75 pounds or more, here's what really works. And I can say this confidently because in the last week, I've interviewed 3 clients who have all crossed this threshold in the last year. And you can check out their interviews down in the description. As I was going through these interviews and asking them questions on the tactics that they use that helped them get there, on the mindsets that they had that got there, I recognized 3 things that they did from a tactic standpoint, and then 3 mindset shifts that they made. So I'm going to break down all 6 of those in this video and show the overlap of those. If you're not familiar with who I am, my name is Paul Klingen, and believe it or not, I help Star Wars nerds specifically lose weight and feel more confident in themselves. And so these are just 3 of hundreds of clients that I've worked with that fit this specific criteria. I want to give you, if you're someone that's got a significant amount of weight to lose, belief that it is very possible. And in the next year, your life could look completely different, because that is what has happened for Kat, Baggio, and Travis. So I'm going to start with one of the things that they did from a tactical side of things, and that is going to be their nutrition. Now, Kat right here, believe it or not, had 51,000 grams of carbs over the last year and still lost 90 pounds in 365 days. And so what enabled her to do this was tracking her nutrition, figuring out what her caloric intake needed to be, setting a protein target, and then doing her best to hit that day in and day out. And as you can see, she was very consistent. She wasn't always consistent. She wasn't always perfect. She had days where she messed up. And that was the case for Travis. That was the case for Baggio. But what they didn't do is they didn't give up. If they had a bad day, if they had a bad weekend, they jumped back on track and they were able to make adjustments as needed to make sure that any metabolic adaptation that was occurring or any burnout that was happening, we took time to spend time in a calorie deficit, in maintenance mode, allowing them to recover and then going back into that weight loss phase. To start, they saw roughly 8 to 10 pounds a month. And when you have a significant amount of weight to lose, you can lose more weight. That is going to be roughly 1% of your body weight a week. So if you're at 300 pounds, that could very easily be, 2 pounds in a week. That could easily be 8 pounds in a month, or 10 if you obviously have a little bit more to lose. And especially in the first few months, you're going to see that precipitous fall down where it is maybe a little bit more aggressive of a down slope. The big thing that you cannot avoid in this scenario is your nutrition, gaining awareness around it. And I think a lot of the reason why a lot of people get overweight, just transparently, is over consuming calories. Maybe that's from stress eating, maybe that's from an injury, maybe that's from a number of different factors. But the first thing you got to get on track is your nutrition. You can't out-train a bad diet, which is actually a good transition, because let's go and talk about how they trained. They all would have started out with bodyweight workouts, focusing on a lot of walking. As someone who has a significant amount of weight to lose, you can't go and do a bunch of jumping, burpees, kettlebell lunges. There's already enough weight on your body as is. And so I think a really big thing to make sure that if you're in this part of your journey, start small. Don't give yourself too much too soon. Bodyweight workouts, then moving to dumbbell workouts or kettlebell workouts, then moving to barbell workouts. And obviously there's context and nuance to the individual, how much experience they have. But again, if you're 300 pounds and you're doing bodyweight squats, you've got 150 pounds that you're squatting. You don't need to go and add a bunch more. But that doesn't mean that you need to work out 2 hours a day in the gym. Go for a walk, try and get 60 minutes of walking in a day, 30 to 45 minute workouts. I had Kat doing lower body, upper body, lower body, upper body with some dumbbells in the gym and barbells as she got towards the end of that initial year. But that doesn't mean that you have to do that either. Your nutrition is going to drive a majority of the results that you're looking for, but just find a plan that you can follow and find one that works for you specifically. Because again, you can't just go and train like a professional athlete. You can't go and train like someone who's 100 pounds lighter, because you've got to make sure that you're working around any joint mobility issues, any pain. You're going to crawl, walk, run in this journey. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just walking, focusing on your sleep and good nutrition, you can see 50 pounds lost very easily just doing that. The strength training is great for insulin sensitivity. The strength training is great for obviously getting stronger, building muscle, and helping you down the road build equity in your body so that you have a much more likelihood of maintaining the weight loss, because muscle is going to be able to store glycogen in it. So you're going to be able to have more carbs, and you're going to be able to be more metabolically active by having more muscle on your frame. Strength training is not going to be the way that you burn a bunch of calories. Focus on your nutrition, focus on movement to get there. Most people get to this point of being obese by simply not being as active as either they used to be or need to be. They're living a sedentary lifestyle. So getting active is going to be one of the best things that you can do. Again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just go and walk and be as active as you can that way. The next thing that they all did is they had a community. And I think one of the biggest things that gets overlooked from a community standpoint, most people don't have a good example of what health looks like. They weren't born into a family where fitness was a priority. They weren't born into the family that had a healthy nutrition habits, and they might not know anyone in their circle of 5 people that they're surrounded by that are active, that are healthy. And so getting in a community of people that, 1, support you, 2, will make you feel seen and have gone through the challenges that you've heard, but 3, cheer you on. What was really cool is being able to see Travis and Kat and Baggio sending in their performance, their progress into the community, and they all kind of fed each other motivation wise, because they're able to see, wow, someone else is doing it. I'm not alone on this journey, and it's also possible. I talked about it at the beginning of this video, but belief is the most important thing on this journey. You got to believe that it's possible. I believe that it's possible because I've seen tons of people do it, but you've got to believe that it's possible, because you can't outwork a lack of belief. Eventually your brain is going to sabotage you. Oh, it's not possible. I'm just going to give up. Being surrounded by people that believe in you and being surrounded by people who have climbed the mountain that you're climbing will give you belief that it is possible where you may not have had that prior. Having Travis every single month share, I'm 50 pounds down, I'm 60 pounds down, I'm 70 pounds down. Having Kat share, I'm 50 pounds down, I'm 60 pounds down. Having Baggio share the exact same progress, that's what enabled them to kind of see, wow, other people are doing it, I can do it as well. Those were 3 tactical things. Getting surrounded by people that inspire you. That's the community part. Having a nutrition plan, having a training plan. Nutrition wise, you got to make sure that you're tracking it, or at least having, it may not be calories and macros. It might just be having a food journal, but some way to make sure that reality is lining up with what your intuition is saying. Intuitive eating for someone who is 300 pounds is not a good idea, because your intuition is not attuned to where you need to be. Next part of this is the mindset. And there's the tactics. Everyone knows, yeah, nutrition's important. Yeah, you got to exercise. Yeah, community is important. And if you didn't know that, like, great. That's definitely an important part. But the 3 things that I noticed as I was interviewing them, the curiosity that they had. And when I say curiosity, I mean 2 things. 1, they wanted to learn. They wanted to educate themselves. There's a really interesting phenomenon with weight loss, with people who come into a lot of money, especially within a few years, they've lost it all. From a money standpoint, they've lost it all. From a weight standpoint, they've gained it all back. Why does this happen? Well, from a lottery standpoint, or even from a professional athlete standpoint, they go in to a specific day where they don't have a lot of money. They have beliefs around money. They have education around money. They have identity around money. And then they get a sports contract. Boom, millions of dollars. They win the lottery. Boom, millions of dollars. They end up giving it all back because they are operating from the same level of education, the same beliefs, the same identity around that. And you will always find yourself back to baseline, back to homeostasis, if at any point things do change for the positive or the negative. And so from a weight loss standpoint, people will lose the weight, but they don't educate themselves on what they need to do to maintain it. They don't make the identity shift to be someone who is at that other level. They go back to eating how they were. They go back to the beliefs around self-worth or around self-sabotaging. And so they find themselves back at square one a year later. And so what these clients did is they were really curious. In coaching, they asked a lot of questions. They made sure to go over all of the educational material. I remember every single week seeing Kat on the group calls, and she was there learning, trying to understand how to apply what she was doing and why what she was doing was working. And when you raise your level of education and you raise your identity, now your baseline is like a thermostat. You're no longer set at 70 degrees, you're set at 89 degrees. If it gets hot or if it gets cool, you're going to find yourself boiling back up to that level of higher education and higher identity. Now, the second part about this curiosity is one that I actually didn't expect, and it was really cool to see people who were curious about what was around the bend. Like, what happens at the next 10 pounds? 1 year progress. So over the course of a year, 90 pounds down, pant size from 20 plus to 10, 250 workouts. She unlocked her first push-up in May. She hit 150-pound lunge, 400-pound leg press. She went on her first hike. She went back to rowing for the first time in 15 years. I remember at one point she was able to ride a scooter through the city, which she hadn't been able to do in a while. But the point here is that if you just set your goal at 20 pounds and then you lose the 20 pounds and you don't have any curiosity as to what happens if you lose 30, what happens if you lose 40, you just stop. Whereas what these clients all did and what they all had in common was that they didn't want to just say, oh, this is good enough. They wanted to know how good they could feel if they kept going. And what that did was, oh man, I feel so good at 50 pounds down. I wonder what 60 pounds down feels like. Initially, I couldn't do, she couldn't go on a hike at, let's say, 10 pounds down. But once she hit 30 pounds down, now she had the energy for it, or the strength for it, or the stamina for it. And that made her question, I wonder what happens if I get 60 pounds down. And that curiosity feeds this vision that you're now kind of pulled towards, that you're just chasing this leveled up version of yourself in perpetuity, as opposed to just setting a goal of 50 pounds or an arbitrary number of 250 or 200 and saying, okay, cool, I'm done there. And always asking, what else am I capable of? What is the next thing that I can go and achieve? And that keeps you going in a world where it's like, okay, cool, I've hit my destination. I got news for you guys. There is no destination. You definitely hit checkpoints and you definitely hit huge milestones. But if you've got 75 plus pounds to lose, you got to look at this as, hey, I'm getting on the path. I'm getting on this, never ending treadmill. And yeah, it doesn't need to be a sprint, but you got to just continue to walk this path over and over. If you fall off, that's okay. Get back on it. But this is a journey that you're going to go on for the rest of the year. And you're going to be so much happier that you did, because along that journey, you're going to unlock these new abilities, more confidence, more badassery, changes in eating habits. She did her first time cannonball off a deck into the lake. She couldn't swim summer of 2023. That's incredible, because that's an experience that some people take for granted. That's an experience some people never get to have. She unlocked that because she was curious the entire time she went through her journey. Another one that, so curiosity is one. The next one is awareness. And I think this is a really big one that hits home here for Baggio, is just being aware of how you feel and being aware of what could happen if you keep going down this path, and being aware of what is possible if you never change, or being aware of what's possible if you do change. Baggio says, if I was going to a wedding or funeral, I would have to hide behind a 3X or 4X flannel, because I could barely get it to button up. Forget wearing the turtleneck when I already had no neck. It's not fun, but you've got to be able to get to a point to where you are getting face to face with reality and pulling things that are happening in the dark, happening in the subconscious that you don't want to look at, and shining a light on the things that you're maybe embarrassed to shine a light on, and just getting real with yourself and trying to create as much awareness of the situation you're in, the habits, the people that are causing you to stay stuck. And when you have that awareness, then you can go and start to make changes. One of the things Baggio talks about in his interview is the people he was hanging out with, the relationship that he had, and realizing that he had to make a drastic change. But that realization didn't come until he had awareness of, one, how unhappy he was, two, of how unhealthy he was, and just getting really clear on what happens if I keep going down this path. But also on the flip side, what happens if I go and make this change? And I would also kind of consider this an imagination as well, being able to visualize that. Most people are just thinking short-term instant gratification. What's 5 minutes ahead of me? You got to be able to visualize what's down the road if I go down path A or path B, and create awareness around what is leading down that path. So that is the second one. The third one is courage. And I think there is nothing more important on a fitness journey, especially someone who has a long way to go, than courage. Because there is a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of fear around saying, hey, here's my before photos. Hey, I'm going to the gym for the first time and I might not look like I feel like I belong here. There's the courage around saying no to friends and family who want to keep you put where you are and keep feeding you the way they've been feeding you, or keep, holding you back with their beliefs. There's the courage of saying, hey, I'm going to trust someone like a coach and a community to share my challenges, share my wins, share my goals, and not try and figure it out myself because it hasn't been going well for me over the last X amount of years. And just being able to have courage of, if I go down this path, there are better things for me. It's not easy. And I think a lot of people want to talk about confidence. Confidence is great, but it's not better than courage. But to step into fear, to step into an uncertain situation is to show courage. They didn't wait for a perfect time. They didn't wait for things to get easy. Travis started on a random Tuesday. Kat, was saying, I wish I would have started sooner, not waited to get to the heaviest I had ever been. But that also takes courage and not waiting for the perfect moment to run out, into the field. I'm picturing like I'm out in the wilderness right now at family, and you just picture like an animal that's hiding in the bush. It's scared. It's got to run across the field, but it doesn't know what's out there. Just saying, all right, there is no perfect time. I've just got to have courage. I got to run right into this dark room that I'm not certain what's in, because I can't stay where I'm at. And I think that's one of the coolest things that I would say all three of them have had in common. So just to kind of recap, you got your training, you got your nutrition, specifically, from a training standpoint, making sure that you don't bite off more than you can chew. Start with walking, then start with body weight, then add on as you need. From a nutrition standpoint, track your food, goals around your protein, around your calories, and make sure that you are aware of what you are eating and making adjustments there. Get a community, people that support you, people that can show you that the path that you are on is, one, worth it, two, that it is possible. Then from a mindset standpoint, be curious, learn, educate yourself, and wonder and ask, what happens if I keep going down this path? And that's tied to imagination and awareness, being aware of what your goals are, what your fears are, and what's been holding you back from a habit standpoint. And then finally, having courage. And if you can do all those things, 75 pounds, 150 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever your goal is, 100% possible. From a community standpoint, if you're curious how they also added in layers of gamification, because again, they were Star Wars nerds, they were gamers, they liked that. This next video here will walk you through 3 different ways you can gamify your fitness to make it more fun and engaging and make it feel a little bit more approachable to you if that's kind of how you like to do things.